Have a great rest of today. Northwest Public Radio, KRFA.
Good evening, everybody. Today is Monday, August the 15th, and this is a Moscow City Council meeting. Jim?
Would you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jim. Before we get going further, we got a proposed edition of the agenda item tonight for the City Council. Gary, would you explain what we are doing here, please?
Thank you, sir. What you have in front of you is a proposed addition to the agenda, and the item proposed is a republication of Ordinance 2016-10, which was passed by the Council on August 1st, 2016. The ordinance was incorrectly written. However, there was a scrivener's error in the title of the ordinance, which was read into the record and subsequently used as a basis for publication of the summary of the ordinance. The title and summary correctly described the Moscow City Code sections that were being amended, but also incorrectly described a Moscow City Code section that was not being amended. The corrected publication deletes the incorrect Moscow City Code section. By operation of Idaho law and the Council's August 1st, 2016 action, the ordinance will become effective upon its passage, approval, and publication according to law. In order to comply with legal requirements, the publication needs to be amended to correctly summarize the contents of the ordinance. In order to add an agenda item that has not gone through public notice, the Council needs a good faith reason. The good faith reason is that staff just received the affidavit of publication from the Moscow Pullman Daily News today, found that the additional incorrect Moscow City Code section had been published along with the correct Moscow City Code sections that were amended by the ordinance. The ordinance was passed and publication assumed to be correct, and the Latah County Fair has applied to seek a 5-day catering permit rather than the 3-day maximum permit that was amended. Latah County Fair will take place September 17th through 20th, and preparations are currently being made. Waiting until the September 5th City Council meeting to authorize republication will allow insufficient time for the fair to make such preparations in accord with the new ordinance. So the first thing the Council needs to do is vote on the amendment to the agenda based upon the good faith reason.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we've got a motion by Jim Bowl and a second by John for the proposed addition of the agenda item to tonight's City Council. Jen, I'll start with the roll with you, Catherine.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, so that's 5-0. And so now we need to go on and approve the republication of the ordinance 2016-10, is that correct?
Yes,
Gary?
thank you. If you look at the attachment on the CCSR just passed out, you'll see a deletion of the incorrect code section, and we would ask that the Council authorize republication of the ordinance. The city attorney then will certify the publication, and it will be sent to the newspaper in time to save the fair. So moved.
Second.
Okay, John made a motion and Gina made a second to approve the republication of ordinance 2016-10. John, I'll start the roll with you.
Aye.
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 Okay, anything else with that, Gary, that we need to do? Does this need to be, okay. All right, now we will move on to the next thing, which will be the consent agenda.
I would move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Art and a second by Catherine to approve the consent agenda as it is. I will start the roll with Catherine.
Aye.
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 Okay. Staff recognition report, Gary.
I have none tonight, sir.
Okay, mayor's appointment. I have 5 appointments that I need the council to consider for vote tonight. Christine Gilmore, Arts Commission, expiration and return 12/31/2017. David A. Wilson, Arts Commission, expiration 12/31/2016. That's a voting county seat. Josh Larson, Art Commission, expiration 12/31/2016. That's a non-voting council county seat. Catherine Clancy, Arts Commission, expiration 12/31 of 2019, and Robert Heckendorn, Moscow Pathways Commission, expiration 12/31/2018. I'd entertain a motion for.
I would move approval of the slate of appointees.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion by Art and a second by Jim to approve the 5 named commission appointments. I'll start the roll with John.
Aye.
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 Okay. Are any of those folks out in the crowd? Please stand up so we can see who you are. Introduce yourself to us, sir. Thank you, Robert, for joining us. We appreciate everybody that works on these commissions. Work hard, Robert, and we appreciate their service and what they do for not only our citizens but our town and the rest of the people. So thank you for taking the time to serve for us. Okay, anybody else? Okay, very nice. Okay, public comment and mayor's response period. I allocate 15 minutes at a time for a public comment and mayor's response, as long as it's something that is not on tonight's agenda. And anybody that'd like to speak has got 3 minutes. They can get up and address us and tell us what's on their mind. Give us your name and your address, as long as it's not anything before planning and zoning or board of adjustments or on tonight's agenda, sir.
I'm David Gies at 909 East 3rd Street, or as children of Moscow and neighboring communities, my house has been dubbed the Way Cool Halloween House.
David, could you pull the microphone in front of you so
Oh,
we're
sorry.
recording this? Thank you.
Okay. I'm here tonight representing a new nonprofit organization, Citizens for a Livable Community, whose purpose is to advocate for planning throughout Moscow and puts livability and community design as an integral part of the land use planning and public facility development throughout Moscow. As you know, we have written a letter to the Secretary of Transportation expressing our support for the 2016 Tiger Grant Mountain View improvements, but expressing our strenuous objection to the car-truck bridge at 3rd Street and Paradise Creek. According to the Department of Transportation website, no Tiger grants were awarded this year in Idaho. Nevertheless, the discussion of the city's application has raised numerous issues about 3rd Street and its visions that affect all of Moscow and ignore principles of community design, livability for the whole city. I am representing the steering committee of the Citizens for a Viable Community, asking the mayor and council to address the following regarding the future of 3rd Street, 6th Street, and D Street, recognizing that the optimum arterial access to Mountain View and housing developments east of Mountain View is via the Troy Road State Highway. We ask that you revisit the designation of 3rd Street as a minor arterial and return it to its prior accurate status as a neighborhood collector. This would return the discussion for possible revision to the Moscow Transportation Commission. We ask that you designate a truck route in Moscow that removes truck traffic from having no origin or destination between 6th, 3rd, and D Street to the Troy Road from 3rd and Jackson east. We ask that you install a pedestrian, bicycle, handicap walkway on the north side of 3rd Street and Paradise Creek. We ask that that walkway be wide enough and strong enough to accommodate emergency vehicles such as EMT and ambulance service to the surrounding areas, much as the city has done on the Moscow pathways. We advocate using the $16,000 contributed funds we have helped raise for this purpose. Our 501c3 nonprofit corporation can again solicit grants and contributions that are tax deductible for this purpose. We ask that the Moscow Pathway Commission address the walkway project, establish a pocket park on this
David,
street-
could you please wrap it up?
Okay,
Sir?
I
Thank
just
you.
have one paragraph quick. An adjacent neighborhood a neighbor is willing to help facilitate this project through a possible land donation. We ask the Mayor Lambert to either authorize the council's discussion of with public comment or refer the request now to the Moscow Transportation Commission for review and recommendation for Moscow Planning Commission and then the City Council for a possible appropriate adjustment. This is in interest to all of Moscow and the livability of our town to review street designation and return 3rd Street from Washington East to the former designation as a neighborhood collective. Please act now. Thank you.
An image guy, so you gotta have an image.
Thank you.
Nels Rees, 308 South Hayes Street. I'm also a member of the steering committee of the Citizens for a Livable Community. I come tonight to provide some evidence regarding the East 3rd Street, its history, and its relationship to the Fort Russell Historic Neighborhood District. The district is both important to the city of Moscow and unique within the state of Idaho. A current project sponsored by the Society of Architectural Historians is assembling 100 classic buildings and sites in the state of Idaho. And the only neighborhood district that's in that 100 is Fort Russell. That's the only one in the state. And this will be a website open to the public called SAH Archipedia. And you can see the website as it stands today, but the Idaho things won't be on it until the end of the year. We're slacking just a little bit there, maybe. I would share with you that in 1982, the National Geographic magazine, which I'm sure you're all aware of,
Keep in mind you got about a minute
featured
and
a
half,
story about the Palouse. And the only mention of either Pullman or Moscow was a photo showing the beautiful streets of Fort Russell. You have some pictures before you. I share some images with you about those same streets. Also, you hired a consultant to look at Fort Russell, and we have revised Fort Russell, doubled its size, ran it out to 3rd Street, and have about twice as many buildings, 140 historic homes in it as we speak. So that's something you should be aware of. If you are concerned, one more little comment. If you are concerned about rethinking the issue of 3rd Street and the traffic it contains, I would remind you that in 2005, Moscow's mayor and council reported in the Daily News, and you see it on your document there, that 3rd Street Bridge plan had been scrapped. In 2007, the Resolution 30, you see it before you, noted that pedestrian bridge on 3rd Street over Paradise Creek would be recognized as a need and an appropriate thing to do. You have a copy there before you. So we have a great opportunity to revisit the multimodal transportation plan as it speaks to 3rd Street. It is time to revisit that conversation through the Transportation Commission and seek additional civic input. Thank you very much.
Anything else?
Also, I leave with you on the table over there a copy. It just happens that the big city of Spokane has done a report on the Fort Russell district, and there are copies there on the table should you, in case you missed the Inlander 2 weeks
No.
ago. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Becker J. Gooch. I live at 234 South Roosevelt here in Moscow. I'm here tonight as a member of the steering committee of the Citizens for a Livable Community Incorporated to support my fellow members and their statements you have heard tonight. I urge you to build a pedestrian handicap bicycle walkway this year to help connect handicapped cyclists and walkers, including children, kindergarten through senior high, going to and from 3 adjacent public schools. This walkway will benefit safety and access in our neighborhoods of Moscow. We are affiliated with a 501c3 that has raised $16,000 for this purpose exclusively. We would be willing to extend our efforts in cooperation with the city to make this walkway and adjacent pocket park a reality. Nels Reese has shown that the 3rd Street already carries its fair share and more of Moscow traffic. If you want to preserve all the positive aspects of Moscow, especially the heart of Moscow downtown and its historic neighborhoods, inviting additional traffic into the core of downtown would increase noise, congestion, and hazards, and would not do pedestrian-friendly businesses any favor. We need to have this conversation in city government with participatory discussion from all Moscow citizens to design our streets with all of us in mind. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you. I look forward to positive action. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Amy Ball, and I live at 601 East 3rd Street. I'm here tonight because I am just finding out about the proposed motor bridge on 3rd Street. And I was told at the last city council meeting that our mayor made a comment that our neighborhood is not special. And while I assume what he meant was that the needs of the residents of our neighborhood don't outweigh the needs of the residents of any other neighborhood, I would like you to know that our neighborhood is indeed special. Our neighborhood is home to 2 of our city schools, including the high school, which draws from all over our community. Increased traffic on 3rd Street would endanger the safety of all of our school children. It's home to 2 city parks where our children not only play, but East City Park is home to 2 major festivals that are loved by our city. And increased traffic will bring increased noise. And we may no longer be able to have concerts in East City Park if too much traffic goes through 3rd Street. And most importantly, in today of suburban sprawl, our neighborhood is one of the few neighborhoods left in our country that has residents of all ages and all incomes. We have single-family homes, we have apartment buildings, we have children, young families, retired people, elderly people, all of whom chose to live in our neighborhood in part because they could safely walk around town. They could let their children walk to the park or to the school. They could feel safe walking to the senior center or downtown to the co-op to buy groceries or to shop at one of the downtown stores. And I think I would like to challenge our city council members one Saturday to look at 3rd Street and all of the people who walk down it to the farmers market, or once school starts, to sit across from the high school and watch what happens when school gets out and children mingle in the road. And I think that you will see that this neighborhood is in fact special. And I urge you to please reconsider building this motor bridge. Thank you.
We've got time for one more comment. Hold it for 3 minutes, and then I'm going to make some comments.
Hi, my name is Mike Sonicson. I live at 320 South Lincoln, which is just south of East City Park. I have a 4-year-old, and I bicycle commute to school as well. It's more manageable on 3rd Street than, say, 6th. But even still, it's a little bit dicey. I fear what would happen if this street were turned into an arterial with higher speed limits and people essentially trying to get through the neighborhood to another destination, especially as it's connected to the Pullman Highway. Lena Whitmore School is right across the street. I was hoping to have my son go there at some point. This just complicates things. And I know that Moscow has complicated traffic issues, to say the least. Just two architectural examples I would bring up. Sandpoint, Idaho has been fighting for years to get a bypass built so they didn't have trucks and heavy traffic going through downtown. It's been built to the relief and delight of everyone involved. And then New York City decided in mid-century, under the direction of a planner named Robert Moses, to put in expressways to serve cars. And some of the things that this planning resulted in were, quote, were uncrossable roadways that divided and isolated neighborhoods, creating slums in some cases. Roadways became, quote, congested, confusing, and unwelcoming. Highway noise that had not been there before, dependence on automobiles for trips of easy walking distance. New York's trying to undo those problems. I would like to think that there are ways that we could address east-west traffic flow in a way that preserves the neighborhoods and the charm and reasons for wanting to live in our downtown or nearby downtown. Thank you.
Thank you for all the comments, and I got a couple of comments I want to make to the folks. Every neighborhood in this town is special, whether you live on 3rd Street or 6th Street, or whether you live on Mountain View, or whether you live on Orchard Avenue. And also, the livability of this community is pretty doggone good. If I look at this and think of this is the biggest issue we have to face in Moscow, we're pretty damn lucky. That's how I see it. Okay? Fort Russell area, yes, it's historic. It's never going to be destroyed. That's not going to happen. So I got to share with you folks, people talk about a bypass road that was studied here for years. It's not feasible through the state of Idaho because there's not enough traffic. This is not New York. We don't have the amount of people we have in the state here doesn't even equate to some of the suburbs in New York City, so we can't, it's not a possible good comparison. So what I'm telling you folks is that we're going to move forward, of course. Yes, we're going to do whatever it is we need to do. We've got great community support from everybody on all kinds of different issues, and we've got a diverse community we talk about all kinds of different things. This issue, I'm sure, is going to come back up again some point in time. No, we didn't get a grant. We got no money to do anything with. Who knows whether we'll ever get it? I don't have any idea. So there you have it. And yes, we all got the letters of sending to Secretary Fox in Washington, D.C. to make certain that this wouldn't happen because you're concerned in your group. And things like that, anybody can do. Anybody can write a letter, and they can dissuade anything that they wish. Taking traffic and routing it down Mountain View just to solely go through Highway 8 probably won't ever happen. It's going to have, the flow's got to stay in a way that it is. This is a small community. If you isolate just certain pathways where people go and cannot go, that's problematic as well. So with that, what I do encourage is Moscow's going to be very livable. Yes, East City Park's special. Yes, Lena Whitmore School is special. Yes, the Moscow High School is special, as is the middle school and Russell School and West Park and Russell, folks. So, and they're all concerns for all of us, not just one segment. So anyway, thank you very much for taking the time, and I just wanted to point a few of those things at you. Okay, with that, I'm going to move on to item number 5, which is public hearing of the Cities of Moscow 2017 annual budget. Gary Reeder, you have the podium, sir. All you folks are welcome to stay for our budget hearing if you wish.
Oh, you're killing me. Your Honor. By now, everybody who's wanted them has a copy of or available to them, a copy of our line item budget, which lines out all the expenditures and revenues the city expects in fiscal year 2017, which begins October 1st of 2016, extending through September 30th of 2017. And perhaps more informative for the public is our budget summary, which talks about budget messages, talks about the aggregates of the budget and the trends that we've gone through for at least the past several years, and sometimes dating back as much as 20 years. So with that, I'll begin the process. The council knows that on July 11th, 2016, we had our annual budget workshop. It was originally scheduled for 2 days, the 11th and 12th of July. We only needed 1 day, the 11th, to get through it. And we will start going through some of those pieces of the budget. And I'll be a little bit abbreviated on those issues that have been discussed before. First thing that we wanted to talk about is the budget is built on several different factors. One of the big ones is collaboration and partnership between the city, the university, the Moscow School District, the Chamber of Commerce, City of Pullman, Pullman-Moscow Airport Board, so on and so forth. The graphic you see up there is just one of the activities that the City of Moscow will be invested in with the University of Idaho. We also engaged this year in a strategic planning process. Actually, it was approved by the City Council last year. It was about 14 months in the making, and in actuality probably stretched over the better part of a dozen years as we began and continued and completed comprehensive planning for a lot of the city's functions. Out of those efforts came a strategic plan that was built on major challenge areas, as you'll see down here at the bottom. Major challenge areas were determined by the City Council. What were the things that were very important to the city? And what were some challenges that needed to be overcome in order for the city to achieve its mission, which you see on the wall and has been there since 2002. The MCA that's called out in this slide is declining enrollment at the University of Idaho negatively impacts Moscow. We've all been reading about the enrollment issues at the University of Idaho and the efforts made by University of Idaho President Chuck Staben and his staff to try and reverse that trend, and they're beginning to see some positive results of those efforts. And the city has helped in a bunch of different ways to assist in that. Okay, strategic planning again. We began it in October of 2014 in earnest. These are the sorts of things that the council considered as they looked through the major challenge areas. The impacts, the magnitudes, pervasiveness, threat levels, frequencies, short versus long-term issues, whether they're controllable or not controllable, timing for implementation, and long-term community vision. And again, this is also focusing on one MCA, insufficient use of strategic planning to inform management and budgeting. One of the things that staff and the council has focused on in the past is without a strategic plan guiding us, we tend to budget in a 1 to 2 year period rather than the 5, 10, and 20-year time horizons that strategic planning helps. Then the council identified some different issues, MCAs, that they felt were of immediate and long-term concerns to the citizens. Deteriorating pavement conditions, again, declining enrollments, inadequate law enforcement infrastructure, to name a few. And then we had internal issues as well, law enforcement staffing reviews, a police department building that has been substandard for years, inadequate fleet facility, and inadequate shop workspace were just a few of the top issues. Excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. Again, this is just another way to look at the ratings that the council, when they rated those different MCAs, Tier 1 being of the highest importance for external, and Tier 1 highest importance of internal. Okay, so those major challenge areas, we started off the budget process, and as I indicated before, we used to do budgeting through a goal-setting process, which proved at different times to be ineffective, to ineffective to effective, depending on the number of challenges and issues we were trying to deal with in a certain year. Again, looking at the longer-term horizon, having the council prioritize those long-range and short-term issues assisted the staff in identifying ways to deal with these issues. The first one is pavement management program. You'll see in the budget this year, when in the past we have had as much as $400,000 in our pavement management program. That was usually achieved by carrying over previous budgets to achieve that $400,000. Police Department facility. We'll talk a little bit today about the council's direction in exploring a potential general obligation bond issue and addressing the police department, which has been an issue for years. Fleet facility shop workspace has to do with our city shop, and which also houses our fleet facility, equipment owned by the water and sewer departments, as well as parks shop as well, and street department. Park development, as the council knows, that there are master plans for virtually, I think we have 4 completed master plans and 5 additional parks that either do not have public access or their boundaries aren't completed yet, that funding is extremely hard to come by. Fire trucks. There was a bond issue that was put to the voters in 2001 to purchase fire trucks, 3 pumper trucks. I'm sure our fire chief will say I'm not using the right term, but these are the snub-nosed trucks that we have around town. And then you have a truck that's a ladder truck, which was the last one we purchased. That was done through a bond issue, and then the University of Idaho paid for half of the ladder truck to assist in our volunteer fire department maintaining a Class 3 fire rating, which assists our community in a couple of ways. One is it takes away about a $3 to $3.5 million current operations budget and capital budget that we would have to include in our already tight city budget, as well as lowering the insurance rates, fire insurance rates for our community. So that's an issue. Downtown improvements, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Downtown is the heart of the community, and its infrastructure is aging. That was another MCA that the council identified. Our recycling center, yard waste drop-off relocation. This is an area where our current recycling center is now. Council approved a single-stream recycling program, making a lot of what is done at that facility a bailing operation, whether or not it's appropriate in that spot. Obviously, the drop-off and the yard waste facility needs to be maintained, and currently our sanitation department is looking into that. Okay, these are a couple of the things addressing those MCAs with perhaps a general obligation bond or loan. We have limited revenue to address government facilities, infrastructure, and parks. We have a property tax cap imposed by the Idaho legislature of a limitation of 3% over the previous year's levy, which amounts to an annual increase, if the council took it every year, of $157,000. That number fluctuates based on some adjustments within our levy, including annexations and new construction. But for this year, or FY 2017, the maximum the council could take would be a $157,000 tax increase. We do not have the ability in Idaho for a local option sales tax. The state controls that, and our city and our citizens are not able to vote a tax increase to take advantage of the transient population, folks who come through for games and all that sort of thing. So there are some things that we've looked at. General obligation bond or loan would be structured. It must be approved by the voters with 66 2/3%, and it addresses these issues: only public facilities, equipment, and infrastructure. As proposed, as directed by the City Council, the funds would not be used in any way for operations, but for those sorts of things that we find an awfully hard time accumulating funding for to address those public infrastructure issues. So going back, reviewing the capital needs, the inadequate police facility MCA, funds are available in capital projects to retain a consultant, and we have done so pursuant to council direction. We assume the cost, or we expect the cost based on square footage estimations, will be in the range of $5 million. Fire truck replacement, as I indicated, it was done back in 1991. The proposal is to go out again. We have preliminarily estimated and are speccing those trucks. We anticipate that the cost will be around $2 million with the University of Idaho, adding to that an additional $500,000 or $600,000 for an expected $1.2 million for a ladder truck, a very expensive piece of equipment. Deteriorating pavement conditions, I've already reported on the $700,000 proposed in FY16 or 17. We are proposing that approximately $1 million of a GO bond issue be dedicated for street maintenance as well. Parks development, Dwight Curtis, our Parks and Rec Director, over the last several months has brought master plans for 4 different parks. Those parks range in cost from about $750,000 to about $1.8 million, depending on amenities. These are costs that are very difficult to raise, this sort of funding. So we have a proposal that, in conjunction with some additional funding for playgrounds, $1 million could go toward minimal development of these parks. That is, to install a playground, provide pathways and accessibility for our young people, so some of these unserved areas of the city could have parks for their children to play on, and we could do that with the general obligation bond funding. Inadequate shop workspace is something that we're also considering as well. The 3 enterprise funds, water, sewer, and sanitation, have some amount of facility out there, mostly the water and sewer fund, and we will be able to help fund that with utility revenues. However, the parks shop and the street fund, which are both special revenue funds, which essentially are subsidized by the general fund, and the internal service fund of the fleet fund. So those funds will come out of the general fund as well. So again, accumulating the type of funding necessary is very difficult. So that's under consideration. And aging downtown improvements. As you know, the council in 1980, there was a downtown LID that essentially redid downtown, created Friendship Square, shut down sections of 4th Street, created the city park that is now Friendship Square in conjunction with the North-South Couplet project. That's been a long time, over 35 years ago. Friendship Square has been redone back in 2006, but the aggregate intersections and ADA access is inadequate and needs to be replaced. Those are not cheap replacements. If we can get those intersections replaced, then we can build the rest of the street over time to meet those sections. So we're hoping to get authorization for that as well. But that's a direct benefit to downtown. It benefits our 26-week annual festival of the farmers market, so on and so forth, and all the other activities that occur in downtown. Moscow has a downtown that's truly the heart of the community and is the envy of most cities in the state of Idaho. This is generally what that general obligation bond would look like. And again, I say bond or loan because there are differences. It is essentially the city's ability to incur debt that lasts longer than one budget year. It's important to note that any bond or loan proposal would be approved by City Council. This is a city and mayor and council initiative. Staff is working on it to try and develop issues for you to take a look at, and we will bring that back to you. We've set up technical advisory committees that will flesh out each of these issues and bring those back to you. It's important to remember that it will take 66 2/3 of the citizens of Moscow voting for this for it to happen. So it's something that the citizens will have to believe is something that is a good thing for the city. We're proposing a $10 million principal estimated at this time. Again, we're just starting the process, so we anticipate it'll be somewhere around that amount, and that is the amount that we have included in the FY 2017 budget. 10-year proposed term, very similar to an M&O type levy for, you've seen that in some of the school districts around. And the idea is to get money to take care of infrastructure that we can't otherwise take care of. Bond rates are very low right now. It seems to be a good time, if we are going to be incurring long-term debt, that this would be the time to do it. It addresses public safety and infrastructure, and again, it's voter approved. So this is the proposed timeline, summer, fall of 16. The staff is working. We have, I think, 9 different technical advisory committees who are meeting to flesh out different issues. In winter of 2016, we will finalize those issues, bring those to the council for their consideration and approval or amendment, seeking further direction. In the spring of 2017, council will approve to go forward or give other direction. If the idea or the direction is to move ahead, we will start a public information process, start town hall meetings, public presentations in order to inform the public of the process. And again, the bond election would occur May 16th of 2017. So that's one of the key initiatives in this budget. Okay, to get to the budget itself. The budget process is about 4 months. It involves our strategic planning. We've talked about the major challenge areas, and throughout the budget document, you'll find that line items and descriptors are tied directly to those major challenge areas. And we also have a couple of prior city council goals that we're dealing with as well, finishing those up. Beautification of city entrances, for instance, location of a downtown restroom, and there's one more that I can't remember right now. But the budget is right around $73 million, $74 million. It's important to note that $10 million of that is an expected revenue from a successful bond election. If that bond election is not successful, then the actual budget is $64 million and is just about on a par with what it was in FY 2016. We'll talk about trends and comparisons and hit a few budget highlights as well. The budget document is a fiscal policy manual, operational guide, financial plan, and communication device. We use it as staff in the financial and administration departments. We look at it as our fiscal document. The department heads look at it as an operational guide. What are they authorized to do and how will they go about it? Obviously, it's a financial plan, and it's the way that we communicate the council goals and the council strategic plan, how that is being put into operation. We've talked about the major challenge areas, and there is that final. Expand the perceived downtown area of Main Street was the one previous council goal that I did not mention prior. Okay, just very basically, we have several funds in the city. We have governmental funds, the largest of which is the general fund. The general fund is the repository of almost all the funds the city takes in that are not utility funds or special taxes, such as the road and bridge tax or the motor fuels tax, which go directly to the street department, and any funds that are the result of utility rates. We have special revenue funds, and you'll also see in the general fund there will be transfers of general funds out to the special revenue funds and internal service funds, which we'll talk about in a moment. Special revenue funds, the largest ones are the Street Fund and the Parks and Rec Fund. Community Playfields, 1912 Center, Arts, and Transit Center are also special revenue funds. Street Department, every year the general fund supports the Street Department in a minimum amount of $120,000, which is just a transfer of tax dollars or general fund revenues to the Street Fund. Parks and Rec is a big recipient of general fund monies, mainly because we do not charge people for use of the city parks. Recreation programs have some amount of funding. The swimming pool has some amount of funding, but the bulk of Parks and Rec is subsidized by the general fund to the tune of just shy of $2 million a year. We have construction funds. We have the Hamilton Fund, which is a fiduciary fund which holds the funds from the Bob Hamilton bequest, which have been utilized in the past for the construction of the Hamilton Indoor Rec Facility, as well as the Moscow School District Community Playfields. And you've recently heard a request on August 1st for funding requested by the ice rink for construction of a permanent ice rink. We have debt service funds, which are used to pay our debts. If you look in the budget, under the debt service fund, bond and interest fund, you'll see a revenue of $10 million, which anticipates that the bond revenues will be receipted there, and you'll also see retained earnings, if you will, of $10 million for that fund until they will be spent. Enterprise funds are our utility funds. We like to say we run those like a business. Water, sewer, and sanitation. Idaho code dictates that utility rates or fees must be reasonably related to the services for which they are received, and those are our three major funds. We have internal service funds consisting of the Fleet Management Fund and Information Systems, excuse me, which provides services mainly to city operations. So what happens in order to fund those funds, if you have a vehicle in your division, you will pay Fleet a certain amount of money for replacement of that vehicle, operations of the vehicle, fuel for that vehicle. And if you have computers, you will get the same sort of allocation so that we can track the cost of government services throughout the budget. Property taxes in this year's budget, as I indicated, a 3% increase, the largest allowed by law of the previous levy, would be approximately $157,000. So 1% property tax increase, which is right around $55,000, is proposed in the FY 2017 budget. That is because the council is taking good care of the public's funds. We are able to balance the budget with less than a 2% tax increase, which allows that 2% that has been saved, if you will, to be allocated at the State Tax Commission to what's known as foregone amount, or property taxes authorized but not taken. The council can, as they have in the past on special occasions, extraordinary occasions, gone back and have been able to tap that foregone amount for certain things. You'll recall that when the Hamilton funds, when the certificates of participation were paid off in the Hamilton funds for about $2.2 million, $1.5 million was utilized, or closer to $1.8 million, was utilized for the Moscow School District community playfields. It reduced the amount of money that the Hamilton Fund revenues were allocated to support the Hamilton Indoor Rec Center, and the council went back, authorized $108,000 in order to help offset that decrease in revenues. You saw it again when the Great Recession hit in 2009. We're down to police officers because just of attrition, people who moved on. We were able to obtain a COPS grant in order to fill those two positions. That funded those positions for 3 years. At the end of those 3 years, council authorized $150,000 to go back and backfill those monies. We utilized foregone amount for that. The latest use of foregone amount was for the assistance with the airport contribution of $2.5 million over 5 years. And we just talked about that about a month ago in these chambers. So the general fund is $5,481,546, about $4.88 per $1,000 of assessed valuation, and I'll tie that statistic up in a moment. Also, because of new construction value, which was a bonus this year, we are allowed, outside of the 3% limitation, to also include the value, the ad valorem value of annexations, of which we had none last year, but we did see construction in the city of Moscow increase by $48,772 of ad valorem value, meaning that those were the taxes generated on new buildings that were constructed in Moscow. That was a larger number than we had originally thought, so that was good news. So our foregone amount in 2016 amounted to $161,539. If the budget is approved tonight, that foregone amount will increase to just shy of $270,000. Those are taxes authorized but not taken by the city that can be taken at a later time if necessary. You'll see here a pie chart that explains if you're a City of Moscow resident and you pay $1 of taxes to Latah County, where does that money go? You'll see the City of Moscow takes 26 cents of every dollar of taxes, property taxes generated within the City of Moscow, in addition to a small bond that we have left on the swimming pool, which is due to be, I guess, paid off in 2018. We have a school district. The school district has a 2.8% bond that was authorized a couple of years ago, as well as 36.3%. And this is typical. School districts also get a large part of their funding from ad valorem taxes. Latah County takes just shy of 23%. Cemetery, a little less than 1%. This is North Latah Highway District. I'm sorry I didn't label that. That's about 7.3%. and the library takes about 3%. So as you can see, from $1 of taxes raised in the city of Moscow for property taxes, the city of Moscow at this point with that bond takes about 27 cents of that, so 27% of the total. How do we compare with our levy stacked up against those others in the other cities in the state of Idaho? The average is $7.61 per thousand. That's this line here. This is the city of Moscow. As you can see, we're in the lower 1/5 at $4 and I believe I said 66 cents per thousand. We are low as far as the city's levy. That does not mean that taxes in Moscow are low. The school district, Latah County, those also are supported by property taxes. But the city's portion of that dollar of property tax is very low compared to those others in the state of Idaho. Okay, these are the largest taxing entities, and this is not in Latah County. This is actually some of our peers. City of Moscow is here in the gold. City of Coeur d'Alene is in the brown, and in the taupe is the city of Lewiston. So you can see in 2015, historically, we lag far behind our peer cities in the amount of levy. Again, that is not to say that taxes in Moscow are low across the board. There are other entities who are also dipping into that tax. Something that also complicates taxes, property taxes in the state of Idaho, is exempt property. The University of Idaho supports about 50% of the economic activity in the city of Moscow, and properties owned by University of Idaho are non-taxable. They're tax exempt. Add to that the city of Moscow, Latah County, Moscow School District, and any of the other entities, Gritman Medical Center, those are not property tax, they are property tax exempt as well. So as you can see, exempt value, and this is just on the improvements, we obtained or calculated this number based upon casualty insurance, what it would cost to replace what the valuation was on those improvements is about $1.15 billion. Taxable properties, including property, the underlying real property, is about $1.1 billion. So not only do we have an extremely low levy, it's being levied on less than half the value of the properties within our city limits. So it's one of those things that the city of Moscow, the city council, staff, the mayor, we all know that we need to make do, we need to take care of the taxpayer dollars, and we believe that this budget does that, and this budget plan does that. Okay, one of the things that people ask is what happens to employees in this budget? Cost of living adjustment for 2017, which is utilized by going to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We derive that by taking the 2015 average, and it comes out to just over 1/10%. So the CPI is extremely low. Salary adjustments, the police have a step and grade system, 7 steps, 3.5% per step. At the end of those 7 steps, they will be at 100% of market. In other words, they should be on a par with other like experienced officers at different cities around our area or within our region. 4% for those employees, non-police sergeants, patrolmen, and corporals. Those employees who are under 100% of market, in other words, they're fairly new and moving up, they would be eligible for up to a 4% on average salary increase until they reach market. Because it's a performance-based system, once you reach 100% of market, on average, you're eligible for up to 1% on the average for pay above market rate. We also have a wellness program, a healthy, our health plan increase this year was 9.6%. Started off in excess of 16%, so we felt good that we got it down to that. That's just health insurance, and a large part of that is the Affordable Care Act taxes and such, which are now becoming built into the plan as well. We also have a voluntary employee benefit plan, which assists our employees in meeting the needs of increased insurance deductibles, health plan increases. That's usually funded about $250 per employee. Council has authorized us to propose that at $350 to help offset that 9.6 increase. We also have several recognition programs that we're proud of as well. Personnel changes. There's some restructuring going on in the administration department. We're looking at our legal department, our HR department, and trying to make sure that we have administrative assistants that will assist in spreading across the board. Our HR department right now is a half-time administrative assistant. That's becoming more complex as we move through healthcare changes, so on and so forth. We also have additional needs in legal that we're attempting to adjust, hopefully with our existing staff, but we do have some part-time monies in there if it's necessary to, as we're completing that restructuring. Community development, we have an electrical inspector / fire inspector, half-time to the fire department, half-time to community development, who has indicated that he may retire this year. If so, we will be hiring an electrical inspector in community development and a fire inspector in the fire department. It's hard finding an electrical inspector who's also a fire inspector, so there are needs in those departments that we hope to address with this. Information systems, Zach, who you well know, who's recording this meeting as we speak, also does double duty for the farmers market. He's assisting in our information systems as well, doing a great job there. As you know, information systems just get more and more complex, and this will help them address some of their needs. We had in the proposed budget a full-time market manager for the farmers market. We applied for a grant for that. Since the budget was printed, we found out that that grant will not be forthcoming. We're currently reviewing other issues, but it was included in the budget. Public Works, our rate study and comprehensive plan for the sewer system indicates that we have need, because of the size of the system and the duties, for a new wastewater conveyance operator apprentice, and that is also included in the budget and was contemplated by the rate study. We also have an administrative assistant who's going from half-time to three-quarter time. That is to deal with some new work order job software that will help make the technicians more efficient. Also, we have a new environmental services division that addresses our water conservation program and other issues, the FOG program that there's been so much talk about lately, so on and so forth. So there's additional assistance there as well. General fund revenues. Okay, general fund revenue, we're looking at overall revenues of $14,667,442, which is a very slight increase over fiscal year 2016. These are our major sources of revenue in the general fund. Certainly taxes, as you know, I reported the taxes were, I believe, 5.4. Don't hold me to that, I'll know in a minute. Out of a $14 million budget, just a little over 1/3 of the general fund is property taxes. It gets a lot of attention, but it's also just over 1/3 of the revenues. The rest comes from state sales tax apportionment, state liquor tax, state revenue sharing, franchise fees, licenses and permits. We also get a reimbursement from the Urban Renewal Agency because our community development director also serves as executive director of the Moscow Urban Renewal Agency, and we provide financial and administration services to that entity as well. We talked about the foregone amount a few moments ago. So these are some of our largest. If you look at state revenue sharing in the gold, state liquor apportionment in the brown, yes, the brown, and the greenish is state sales tax distribution. So you can see the Great Recession about 2009 through 2010, and we've seen pretty steady increases. One of the great things I like to point out is that citizens in the state of Idaho like to continue to drink liquor even in times of recession, so that's been a steady source of income for the state. Franchise fees are those fees that are paid by cable TV, Avista Gas, Avista Electric, and sanitation. LSI pays a franchise fee as well. This is a fee that is paid by these entities for use of the public rights-of-way to conduct their business. They are all a factor and a percentage of those revenues generated within the city limits, so a significant portion of our revenues as well. Building permit revenues, I could allow Bill to wax eloquent about these for some time, but as you can see, the Great Recession knocked us down a little bit. We've seen some pretty good recovery so far. 2015 wasn't the greatest year, but 16 estimated looks pretty good. We'll level off a little bit, but as Bill's reported in the past, we have a lot of projects that are in the hopper that we hope we will see come to fruition within the next year or so. General fund transfers, as I indicated, there's a lot of in the non-departmental section of the budget. You'll see those transfers of general funds out to other funds. Street fund, as I indicated, a minimum of $120,000 per year. We hope to increase that in the future in order to address the MCA that the City Council has laid out, that we need to put more money in our maintenance program. Parks and Recreation Fund, as I said, just shy of $2 million support for that. Moscow School District Community Playfields, paid half by Moscow School District. The city's portion of that is a little over $60,000 a year. Pays for the operation and accumulation of equipment for that fund. The 1912 Fund funds the Heart of the Arts contract. They operate the 1912 Center on behalf of the city. The city pays certain expenses, including utilities, for that as well. The Arts Fund supports operations and programs of the Arts Department, including Farmers Market. There is a small transfer into the Water Fund. We used to have a sustainability coordinator or intern who worked out of administration. That position has been transferred to the Environmental Services Group, and it's working out very well there. In fact, Adam will be going down to Boise to get an award on behalf of the city here in just a couple of days, and we'll have a report for you on that in a couple of weeks. Capital Projects Fund, if we have monies in the general fund that we can use to support capital projects, this is where that transfer is made as well. In FY 2017, it's anticipated that there will be no transfer. Fleet Fund, we have emergency service vehicles. One of the things that we're talking about in the bond issue is to get fire apparatus, fire trucks, and we're trying to accumulate funding for that as well as a regular business item. And information systems. We have new software and hardware that the general fund needs. That's also accumulated in the internal service fund. Okay, our general fund highlights. I won't go through these very much. You'll see a bunch of things in administration in support of the bond issue. There is additional funding for professional services to retain bond counsel and a financial consultant. There's also additional funding in advertising and publishing to assist in the public information process for a potential bond issue. In finance, full-time wages, there is a bit of a change there. As the council knows, we went through a couple of searches for a finance director. We're unable to retain a finance director that met our qualifications. So Sarah Banks, who is now our assistant finance director, is working toward that position over a period of time. It will take some time to do that. I am currently serving as acting finance director. We've also been able to persuade Sue Nelson, our former accounting manager, to come back and assist. Sue is here for well over 14 years and knows her way around, so that's helping us a ton. Community development, it's time again to shoot a new picture of the city. So they promised me that we will get an updated photograph in City Hall Council chambers, so you'll see something out of that. And in non-departmental, Council approved an airport development participation in the amount of $2.5 million over 5 years and $500,000 a year. We've just made the second payment on that, so we paid $1 million. That's paid in a couple of different ways. Council authorized an increase out of and accessing some of the foregone amount to pay for that, $216,000 a year. We also use internal borrowing to cover the other $284,000 the first 5 years. Actually, it's 4 years. And that will be paid back over a period of 10 years with a 2.5% interest rate, which is about 2.5 times the current interest rate being paid by the local government investment pool. So it's a good deal. Those funds are being held by the city in accord with our operational plans and reserves, and this is entirely within that. Council reviewed that and allowed that to occur. Okay, we have special revenue funds. This is a street special revenue fund. These are the different sources of revenue. As you can see, they're on a slight increase. This little jump here was a good thing that happened in 2015. The state legislature authorized an increase in gas taxes, or what's known as highway user tax, which gave about, I believe, a $220,000 shot in the arm, 220, 240, which assisted us in doing a couple of different things. It allowed the street fund actually to pay for at least a portion of a large piece of equipment last year, but it's also helped us to be able to fund street maintenance in the amount of $700,000. So that's been a real bonus. So we've seen some increases there. Road and bridge tax is pretty steady. It's based upon valuation, just like our ad valorem taxes are, but they've been steady throughout the years. Street fund highlights. I won't go through these. The big one is the $700,000, as I indicated here. We also have some different things going on. The Tiger Grant, as you indicated, is not proceeding, and we will have a report on that and likely an in-depth press release by the end of this week. Excuse me. But we also have a bunch of different things that we're working on. We have an STP urban project on Mountain View Road that we're accumulating monies for. We also have the 6th and Jackson intersection realignment. That was something, as you recall, next to the 6th and Jackson property that is owned by the Moscow Urban Renewal Agency, and the city is assisting with that as well. And we have the streetscape program, storm main replacement program, just to name a few. Parks and Recreation is our largest special revenue fund as far as subsidies from the general fund. You see there's, boy, I just can't figure this thing out. Okay, so you're seeing it's a fairly steady increase. If we had a trend line, it'd be just about like here, except I'm looking at pool. It'll be just about like here. This big one here is because of some infrastructure we had to the pool. We had a replastering project. We also replaced repaired the fiberglass slides. We replaced the chlorine system, and we replaced the frog with now the moose at the pool. So we had significant costs of repairing the pool as well. Since that time, we've been putting away some amount of money to assist with those costs, but again, it's a matter of having not very much money and trying to utilize those dollars as efficiently as possible. So you can see the pool, same thing. We have other issues through here as well. Parks and Rec highlights. We've got these different operations that they run. As you can see, there's quite a few of them. Facilities, we have several different facilities as well as 16 parks. Transfer to the Hamilton Fund, I've talked about that a little bit in my preamble. There's currently about $2.95 million left in that fund, of which $1 million has been requested by the ice rink folks. And pursuant to council direction, we're currently working with them to determine the conditions under which that transfer could occur. And then you've got the school district community playfields, which was also funded, city's portion, through the Hamilton Fund, but we have a joint operational agreement with the school district. Arts Fund, same thing. This big jump at the end was because of the full-time market manager. There was also a request to take an administrative assistant full-time, and these, again, were proposed numbers. So next year you'll see that being more in line down here. Arts Fund, we have some different things. Market promotion program. We have a Smithsonian exhibit coming. Gallery paintings. We have the High Five program, which the Arts Fund has been working with at the Farmers Market as well. 1912 Center and the Transit Center Fund, which is funded through the lease fees from the University of Idaho and Smart Transit. Now we get to the enterprise funds, which are our business-type funds. This is a rate comparison of our contemporaries. I asked folks to focus on Pullman and Lewiston, Coeur d'Alene, and Moscow. You've got some large amounts of water and sewer funding in places like Potlatch, Kendrick. Those have large infrastructure costs, but they don't have many ratepayers to take those rates and balance them out. So you'll see some large amount of funds there, and they essentially have large costs of infrastructure, not very many ratepayers. So we compare very favorably with our contemporaries. We do have a very aggressive, as you see our water fund, we have a stepped rate in order to encourage conservation, and Moscow traditionally, especially over the last 20 years, has been very aggressive in seeking alternatives, different research, and that sort of thing, hopefully to help address our water issues. So water and water capital, 6.3% increase in water rates this year per the 2013 rate study. I will also note that a rate study will be undertaken in FY 2017, so that will be updated. We'll look at not only the operational costs, where we are, what we need to do in the future. So I won't go through all of these except to highlight a couple of different things. Something that we're going through right now is the well number 10. Well number 10 was drilled. It came in very well. It will be a high-producing well for us. Costs were significantly higher than we thought they were going to be when that was originally estimated. It was a couple of years ago. There have been some things changed since then. Also, we have 6 booster station replacements, which are also scheduled. Those came in also quite a bit higher because there had been some regulation changes. They used to be able to be located in the ground. Now they have to be above the ground. We have power systems that need to be integrated, auxiliary power systems, so on and so forth. So again, trying to get the system up to where it can serve our citizens in the long term, but also in cases of power outages and those sorts of things. One of the things with the booster station replacements is also to provide fire flow in areas of the city where pressures aren't what they should be. So we should get those issues addressed with this. Lot of different capital projects, as you can see. And as the rate study moves forward and we're able to identify capital improvements, we will be constantly assessing these to see if maybe some of them can fall by the wayside if we can address them in other ways. Those are all things that our people are looking at as we're moving forward. Sewer capital, same thing. The wastewater treatment plant is currently going into phase 5. Temperature, we're trying to see what the issue will be there, looking at what our National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit issued by the EPA regulates. But we have probably at least one more upgrade to that system. We also have in our sewer rate study, we're anticipating a 4.5% increase. If you'll recall, there was a time when these increases were above 8%, and that was to address some of the big issues we had, specifically with accumulating funding and being able to pay for some of the revenue bonds in order to meet those EPA regulations. So we're finally feeling like we're getting ahead of those a little bit. But we'll continue to look at that, and that's one of the reasons we wanted to do the rate study in FY 2017. So sanitation capital funds, rate adjustment is 3% per the 2012 sanitation rate study. We are currently we're in the midst of a rate study at this point. A lot of the technical work has been completed. That rate study will be looked at with the Citizens Committee as we did in the 2012 rate study. It's anticipated that we're looking at probably around 3%, but hopefully we'll get some more clarification of that. You're seeing operating expense increases of about 4.9, but we'll know more after that rate study is completed. So 3% is what's anticipated in the FY 2017 budget. Our miscellaneous funds, fleet information systems, and debt service, these are just some of the things that we're looking at this next year. It's always an interesting time when we talk about what's necessary in the fleet. Contrary to popular belief, it isn't that this pickup is 10 years old now and needs to be replaced. Our fleet folks do a really good job of looking at what the vehicle is used for, how many miles are on it, how often it's been in the shop, so on and so forth. A lot of the same things that we do as individuals in our personal vehicles. And they do a great job out there. Every year they generate what's known as the minimum use list, much to the chagrin of other departments. because they get a visit from both the fleet manager and get a call from my office saying, do you really need this vehicle that's sitting around? And sometimes they do. We have a large number of pickups that our part-time crews utilize in the summer, and they sit for much of the rest of the year. They tend to be the lower value pickups that are fairly old, but they'll still get a visit from Tyler if it comes up on the low use list. We also have some things, forklift, roller compactor, those sorts of things that we're trying to develop a program by which these things that are used for a specialty, not used very often, but when you need them, you need them. And typically when you need them is in construction season, when you can't lease them because contractors have leased them all, and all you can really do is buy it new. Yet we don't want to buy it until we absolutely have to. So again, the fleet department is looking at ways to accumulate funding so that they utilize the one that we have until it just won't go anymore, and then we replace it. So I'm very proud of the way those guys are looking at that. Information systems, again, you guys all have iPads, cell phones, computers. We have a voice over IP system in the city. We televise council meetings. It's pretty ubiquitous. Our website, social media, all that sort of thing. Information systems is what makes that work. So over the last 15 years, closer to 17 years now, we have gone from having no information systems department to having 5 people. And we're barely keeping up now. So, and as you know, with all the constant threats, you probably noticed lately you're getting a lot more spam in your email. There are constant threats from the internet that we have folks working on that all the time. So that's also protecting the public system. Debt Service Fund, LID Service, and LID Construction. LID Debt Service and Construction are very small. We haven't issued a new LID in some time. Local Improvement District, for those who don't like the acronym, that's when citizens of a certain area of town want to improve the infrastructure on their street, and they petition the city, or the city could do it by council action if they wanted. That's not done very often. And it's a way for them to get their street fixed or rebuilt or built and utilize the city's resources to do that and pay that back over time. Again, we haven't utilized LID in some time. And the Debt Service Fund, which is how we pay our bond payments, so on and so forth. Capital projects, these are just a smattering of the capital projects we're looking at. So you can see as you go down through all of those, we're making headway on some. Some of them are continuing. Subdivision Trees Program, continuing. We continue to work toward building Blackbird Station Crossing, or whatever the name will be when it's all the smoke clears. Park irrigation improvements, a lot of this stuff. We replace playground equipment as it becomes due. We've accumulated monies for a downtown restroom. Some of these are very large projects. Some of them are smaller projects. Mountain View Road improvements, multimodal transportation improvements, huge projects that require a large accumulation. We're hoping, and as you can see from the Tiger Grant, the LTAC grants, we're trying to get whatever help we can through grants to try and do that, and we've been very successful in the past and hope we will in the future as well. We have accumulations in some of the larger projects as well. These have all been talked about. There are a ton of those, and some of the reserves that we've been talking about. This is all on a capital plan, so there are years that we accumulate, years we expend, so on and so forth. But each one of these projects, A Street improvements, is always somebody's favorite. A Street was being worked on 10 years before I came to work at the city, and I've been here forever. And we've got half of it done. Hopefully we'll continue. And, of course, with the shuffling around of some LTAC monies in the last 6 months, hopefully we'll get the A Street from Home Street to Peterson. Should get it done, construction to occur in 2019. So, that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are you dry? You need a drink of water or anything, Gary?
Something a little stronger.
A couple of comments. Couple of comments that I'd like to make before, and then I'll ask council for questioning for you, Gary. But You talked about that $10 million bond, and it is a mayor and council driven bond that we're looking at. And there's going to be many workshops through the fall and the winter on that to explain to people, because whenever you have something like this, you always have those out there that either have misconceptions, wrong ideas, or whatever. But basically, that bond is for fire engines that we know we need. You go over a period of years, and these fire trucks we have, they become obsolete. They don't make the parts for them anymore, and they are spendy. They're not cheap. We talked about a police department, a new police station that's been in the needs for many years. That's been something that's been looked at for a long time. More money in the streets themselves, and as well as playgrounds for parks that we've got that are undeveloped in our city. And that's what that money is earmarked for, just to make it plain for everybody. But we're going to be talking in depth about that. And as you said, in May, it'll be up to the citizens if they're interested in it or if they're not interested in it. We'll find out. But we're going to do a lot of talking between now and then so people can see what's going on. I want to just, in this budget also, there's $700,000 in street improvements this year. That's the most money that we've ever had. And that's kind of on a process that we're doing year over year, because our streets have deteriorated for a decade at least. Folks that live out there can tell you that, and it's just streets all over town. It's not just any particular place. And so those are the things that we're trying to do to kind of get caught up and work on. So that's something we're working on. And I wanted to give you something here. Some of the fuel efficiencies. Gary talked about vehicles. We've cut out some of the vehicles of use. And just this year alone, from January to July, our fleet has saved 2,717 gallons of fuel. Now, that might not seem like a lot to people out there, but every time we can save something and we have efficiencies in our fleet department in our city, that's a big deal for all of us that are taxpayers in the city. So those are the things that we keep chipping away at, working towards. With that, I'll open up questions for Gary. John?
I've just got a comment. One of the things that I hear a lot is, with a budget of between $65 and $75 million, the city of Moscow should be able to do anything it wants to. And I get these comments from people that pay taxes, so I have a tendency to listen. And what I respond to them is that the city can only spend what it brings in. And we bring in $22 to $23 million a year. So that is the actual amount of money that the city runs on, which is a whole lot different than this budget document. Sometimes it helps cool down these people, other times it doesn't. But you could go into a presentation like Gary just gave us to explain some of these differences between the budget that we approve and the actual amount of money that comes in that is available to be spent on any and all projects. And I am not sure that we oftentimes advertise or let that information out strongly enough to let people know that we do not spend $65 to $75 million a year running this town. We spend about a fourth of that. And other than that, I think Gary gave a great presentation. I think that the budget is in line with what we're trying to accomplish, and I support it.
Shouldn't we hear from the public first?
Well, there's nothing that's going to happen until we have a public hearing, but you guys got any questions for Gary before I open it up for public hearing?
Your Honor, if I may make a comment, too. I really want to thank the council for their efforts with the strategic plan, the mayor for his guidance. Staff has done an outstanding job on this. The department heads did a super job bringing forward reasonable requests and to implement the strategic plan. Especially want to thank Assistant Finance Director Sarah Banks, Accounting Manager Sue Nelson, City Clerk Lori Hopkins, Assistant City Supervisor Jen Piffner, and Judy Davis, our Executive Assistant, among others, just did a fantastic job with the acting finance director. It wasn't quite as smooth as maybe it was in the past, so they really did a fine job of redrafting documents, bringing those to us, to the council on a pretty quick basis. So the quality of the document you see in front of you is because of their work.
Well, and with that being said, too, Gary, this has been a process that's been ongoing for 4 or 5 months. Something that just doesn't happen in a very short period of time. It's well thought out, and you're absolutely correct. The staff did a wonderful job on it. There's been many hours of work by many people that's made this thing happen for us. So,
thank you.
Okay, with that, I will open up the public hearing at 8:24, and I will take testimony for those that are in favor or dislike this or would like to make general comments. If you'd like to come up, please state your name. You will have 3 minutes, sir, and your address.
I'm David Gies, 909 East 3rd Street. I have come to comment on the budget for this coming year and emphasize what a wonderful opportunity the city had in front of it. If you decide to move during this budget year in a cooperation with area citizens to construct a non-motorized walkway at 3rd Street and Paradise Creek. Building a bicycle pedestrian bridge is a project we can accomplish this year with big returns in connecting people in a neighborhood-friendly way. Page 220 of your budget lists the 3rd Street pedestrian bridge as a capital improvement. This is very encouraging and will yield great dividends as it considers how to connect walkers and cyclists more effectively and efficiently. The donations we have already collected for this purpose should help make this possible. Matching the community's goals with very important programs as walkable neighborhoods, especially for elementary students and handicapped citizens, our group would welcome the opportunity to assist in making this project a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Geis.
Victoria Seaver, 121 North Lily. Briefly, I support the general obligation bond. These items have been repeatedly delayed and are needed. I am particularly aware the police station is located on a major one-way street and has to use the alleys to go in opposite direction, even during an urgent responding to calls. I know our police do a lot of work themselves to improve the station, but they can't do it all, and they can't fabricate a newer and bigger building. The volunteer fire personnel defray a lot of insurance costs to the city and residents. The UOI will cover half the cost of a ladder truck. It's time we step up and support these vital services, which are for our benefit in safety and security. I am a strong supporter of parks, and I want to see them further developed. A recent decision to have some minimal in-house construction done, or I don't know if you decided yet or not, but yeah, consideration, to create usable green space is a good move. If people have stopped donating to park development, it's not that they don't care, but that they're frustrated and are withholding contributions until they see something's getting done. Build what you can, and they are likely be forthcoming, and they may help support the bond. Paving is a huge challenge. It's your number one external major challenge area. So I can't begrudge trying to get a jump on that one. A couple other things to mention besides the bond. You know we need and want a downtown restroom, which will serve many events and general use as well as the farmers market. It represents a partnership with the businesses versus relying too heavily on those who can provide bathrooms, but at a significant cost and burden and far more than their share. A town of Moscow's stature and size needs to do this, and we want a quality product that fits our downtown center and character. We want it to reflect the pride we take in our events, businesses, and services like the Chamber. I'd like to see frugal progress on our entryways to show off our town and invite people in. I concur with providing some support to entities that merit edging outside the usual parameters. We just helped out Sojourners. Something like that may come up again, so Sojourners would be an example where we've given them some assistance. They hit multiple areas where they give people a hand up in order to regain their independence and productivity. And as a society, if we fail to give support to strong social services, it will cost us in dollars and lives. So something that might come up in the future. I think the ice rink is worth considering for a portion of the Hamilton Fund, and if the I's and the T's work out, their impact reaches further than games, such as providing a variety of educational activities and being inclusive with other age groups along with youth activities. Walter's not here, but as he noted, they're working in the black, which bodes well for an investment. Always work diligently to conserve and address our water and aquifer for sustainable growth and wise usage. Good job on the Yscape out front and conservation incentives. And good work on leveraging so many projects through assistance grants.
Thank you, Victoria. Others that would like to come up and testify about the budget on any level or whatsoever. Gary, comes in. Okay.
I don't get up that often, so. John Freeland, 815 West C. Just wanted to say balanced budgets are good budgets. So thank you so much to everyone who did such a good job on this budget for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Gary, do we, I guess we're done with public testimony out there. We have other communications, emails, and
yes, you received, I believe the city clerks received one communication from Nancy Cheney. It was all provided to you by email and in writing, so it's for your consideration as well.
Okay. So that email that Nancy Cheney sent everybody is on record. Okay, with that, going once, going twice, close the public hearing at 8:31. Arthur.
I think the budget does what it's supposed to. It doesn't include everything that everybody wants. It's a little bit like having Christmas when you were 10 years old. You had a long list and you didn't get it all, but you got a good chunk of it. And I think this budget fits the 10-year-old list that I had. Boy, that's drawing it out there, isn't it? But I think it provides what we need to run the city responsibly and with fiscal conservatism and consideration. And I think it takes care of many of our needs that we need for the city for keeping it going, especially with the additional money for the streets and the allocation of funds for the other projects that Gary described.
I don't have anything to add. I wondered if we could move to accept the budget.
You sure can if you
I
want
would
to make
like
a motion.
Okay, so, but it says approve the attached resolution. So do I need to move it as a resolution?
Well, there's two things. What you got is there's an ordinance under
The first one, okay. So I move to approve the ordinance under suspension of rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and that it be read by title and published by summary.
And there's also a Part B there, too.
Part B,
Catherine.
to also authorize the mayor's execution of the L2 property tax certification in the aggregate amount of $5,481,564.
Your Honor, if I may, I'd prefer that you did that in 2 separate actions since one requires waiver of the rules.
You want 2 separate motions?
Yes, and then approve the L2 after that,
So I
if that would be
withdraw my
okay.
motion.
Okay.
And I will reapply a new motion to just approve the ordinance under the suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and that be read by title and published by summary.
I'll second.
Okay, Catherine's made a motion, and John's made a second to approve the ordinance under the suspensions of the rules requiring 3 complete separate readings that be read by title and published by summary on our appropriation ordinance. Anybody want any question with that? Everybody know where we're at on this? Okay, I'll start with you, John.
Aye.
As Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce, I need to recuse myself from the section
Okay.
that involves the Chamber. But for the rest of it, aye.
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 Okay. Now, I've got to read this. Hang on just a second here. Let me get this. Ordinance 2016-11. Okay, ordinance number 2016-11, an ordinance entitled the Annual Appropriation Ordinance appropriating $73,875,804 for the purpose of defraying all necessary expenses and liabilities of the City of Moscow, Latah County, State of Idaho for the 2017 fiscal year beginning the first day of October 2016 and ending the 30th day of September 2017, and allocating resources by fund and said appropriations for the objects and purposes set forth in this ordinance, levying ad valorem taxes in the amount of $5,571,687 for the 2017 fiscal year, providing that the provisions of this ordinance be deemed severable, providing for this ordinance to be in full force and effect from and after its passage, approval, and publication according to law.
You can read now.
Ooh, that was a long mouthful. Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
John.
I would make a motion that we authorize the mayor's execution of the L-2 property tax certification in the aggregate amount of $5,481,546.
I second that.
Okay, we've got a motion by John, a second by Art to authorize the mayor's execution of L2 property tax certification in an aggregate amount of $5,481,546. Everybody clear on that? Good to go? Catherine, we'll start with
Aye.
you.
Aye.
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 Okay, we'll move forward. Okay, now we go on to item number 6, which is a public hearing for year 2017 proposed fee resolution. Gary.
Thank you, Your Honor. What you have before you is the FY 2017 proposed fee resolution. The fee resolution is designed and was created to support the FY 2017 budget. We had a workshop on this on August 1st. Several questions were put forth by the council that we will address or did address that night. Happy to address again if you would like tonight. Idaho law requires that a public hearing be held for any new fee proposed by a city or a municipality, or for any fee that is going to increase by 5% or more. In the fee resolution, as is our tradition, we include all increased fees. If we're going to have a public hearing, we include all increased fees as one of those things to propose. So we will address all of those fees in this resolution. So again, going through, we're talking about new fees and fee increases of 5% or more. New fees, there are just 2 of them proposed this year. One is a Public Works Engineering CUP-SUP review fee in the amount of $90 to help offset the costs of administration and reviewing those applications. And then an Arts Department Farmers Market sponsorship. This is a program, as I indicated on August 1st, that is proposed, will be proposed. It will be vetted through the Farmers Market Commission, and a recommendation made either through the commission or staff or both. The council will approve any program prior to it being implemented. So, in the fee resolution, and I may as well hand that out right now if you'll excuse me. There was a council member who called me today in Walter's absence, pointing out that there was a mistake in our fee resolution under the arts. There was a mistake where instead of being a $1,000 fee increase for sponsorship fee, it was $1 million.
I'm glad that Walter, we're all on vacation, spots these things.
Well, and I'm sorry that we don't have sponsors wanting to pay $1 million, but, so I've got the draft budget in legislative format and the new budget. You'll notice in your documents you have both the legislative format, draft budget, or draft resolution, as well as a clean one. So if the council likes where it's going, you can pass the resolution tonight and have a clean copy, especially with revised paging.
Thank you.
So thank you. I'm sorry I didn't pick that up before. So it's 3,000 to 1,000, or 300 to 1,000, not 1 million. Okay, as far as fee adjustments, these are the fees that we just talked about, several of them in the budget. The sewer permit fee, sewer service fees of 4.5%, water fees of 6.3%, then some smaller fees, right-of-way encroachment, small banner. Police Department name check is being adjusted to match state fees that have been adjusted. Information Systems has proposed a fiber optic and rack space lease increase of 3% as well, and that's to keep pace with the market. And those are leases for users, people who lease fiber from the city, and also rack space in our system downstairs. Sanitation, you'll see 3% across the board. That was what was contemplated in the FY 2012 rate study. Man, I'm losing it. 2012 rate study, and as I indicated, we're currently undergoing a rate study at this time. Parks and Rec, you'll recall that the Hamilton Low Aquatic Center Council in this budget and also approved an increase in proposed pay for lifeguards and employees of the pool. We're unable to compete effectively with folks who are employed in the state of Washington, so we want to be able to keep our quality folks. Also, as a way to also keep those lifeguards working and getting them trained up, proposing a decrease of $125 from the $250 fee for lifeguard and water safety training. And then we have a weed control waiver that has not been used in some time that we're proposing that it be eliminated. Not very many fee changes, and I'd answer any question prior to opening the public hearing.
Questions for Gary? I guess everybody's okay with that, Gary, so I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. It is 8:41 for public hearing of the proposed fees resolutions for fiscal year 2017. I would take testimony, any type of testimony. And as usual, please state your name and address, and we will give you 3 minutes to talk about it. Come on up, Victoria. We know who you are. But
put enough time in being here, might as well say something.
Yeah, that's nice.
Victoria Seaver, 121 North Lily, Moscow. So this is a little bit of a slant in here, but that's okay. I'm going to talk about the farmers market. So I think any support of the farmers market may relate to this sponsorship idea, so I'm just going to go ahead and say what I was going to say. I've sat in to observe several of the recent commission meetings, and I know that they're conscientiously reevaluating the fee structure. And in the next few months, they will be providing you with valuable working numbers and data. We love our market. It's number one in the state for many years, and I think that's 39 years, and has garnered national recognition. And it isn't just because we come to get a couple of fresh tomatoes and the berries. The market is a vibrant event that attracts thousands of visitors and regional shoppers who come for local quality produce and value-added products, for the crafts, tasty prepared foods, and the social environment, including music, educational tables and demos, and Friendship Square presentations, and for getting to know the vendors and all about their products. The mix is what makes it so successful. Everyone would like to see the market be as self-sustaining as possible, and it's made big strides toward that. Perhaps some kind of sponsorship would help with that, and I leave that to you to figure out how that may weigh in with my points here. But bear in mind that if it needs some city support, as so far it has, it is worthy of assistance, especially given the extras it provides beyond a produce-only venture. Keep in mind that it is an incubator for vendors, some of which grow out of the market and into brick-and-mortar businesses, and that it fosters economic growth and community identity. The cost of the market represents an investment in Moscow's downtown and is a regional draw. It is a celebration of our talent and bounty. Working with your commission, find the balance between what it should bear, what the city should bear, what a sponsorship might bear, and don't price the fees to the point that you've priced us out of the market. Treat it well so that it may continue to treat us. Thank you.
Thank you, Tori. Others who would like to come up and talk about the fee resolution hearing? So nobody charged the podium? Yes.
Ms. Cheney's letter also indicate that she intended those comments to be made toward the fee resolution as well. So they were public comments given to the written public comments given to the city clerk. And again, those have been distributed to council.
Okay, very good. So they are on record. With that, I will close the public hearing at 8:45 and council deliberate how they wish.
Mr. Mayor?
Don.
I'd move that we adapt this proposed fee resolution for the budget year of 2017.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion by John and a second by Art to approve the fee resolution 2017. That'll start with Catherine.
Aye.
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 No.
Okay, we move forward, and that is done as well, so thank you all. And thank you, Utter Walter, for catching the one you did catch. Now we'll move on to item...
The upper limit,
Yeah,
really.
well, $1 million. Item number 7, recycling roll cart repayment proposal. Tim Davis, sir, if you will come up and tell us what's going on.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Prior to the implementation of the single-stream recycling program, Latah Sanitation had ordered and received roll carts that did not meet the color specified by the city. The color was very similar in color to the roll carts being used for the solid waste collection in Moscow. The city rejected this initial roll cart order and asked Latah Sanitation to reorder roll carts in the color that had been specified by the city. Latah Sanitation had already been required to pay $247,500 for the initial roll cart order, and the city's rejection of these roll carts resulted in a serious financial burden to LSI. For that reason, and the timely implementation of the single-stream recycling program, which had already been initiated, the city elected to participate in a cost mitigation plan. The city agreed to pay for half of the new roll cart order, amounting to $123,750, and LSI agreed to exercise its best efforts to either resell or reuse the wrong-colored carts. The mitigation plan also called for 70% of any cost recovery gained from such resale or value gained from reuse would be paid to the city up to the level of the city's participation. Efforts to resell the carts has proven difficult due to the fact that LSI's name and logo are hot stamped on each side of the carts. LSI is now proposing to pay the city of Moscow for the full participation amount of $123,750. LSI considers the roll carts to have more value to their company than selling them at a reduced price if a buyer were eventually found. LSI is proposing to pay the city of Moscow $2,000 per month over the next 5-year period, and is also requesting that some of the carts be allowed to be used for solid waste collection in Moscow if or when needed. Staff considers those carts very close in color to the carts being used currently for solid waste collection, and that would be a viable use for a number of those carts. And with that, I would welcome any questions.
Well, it's a terrific way of getting their money back. So, questions for Tim? You know, when we first came up with this, LSI has been a partner with us for the city for years and years and years. And when this first came up and we gave $123,750, the council as well as myself kind of took it on the chin a couple of different times from folks out there feeling we were subsidizing a business, and these guys are paying it back. And so sometimes you have to have faith in people, and these guys are pulling back, and we're going to get our money back, and that's a big deal for us. And so this is a big deal for us to get this money back. So our partners out there that's worked with us for years, it's a good thing.
With that, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to approve the rejected roll cart repayment proposal by Latah Sanitation.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Jim and a second by Gina to recommend the recycling roll cart payment proposed by Latah Sanitation Incorporated. With that, I'll start to roll. John, you got a question before we go?
I've got a question.
All right.
Recommend approval of rejected.
No. No, that's not what this. That was not what the motion was. Well, it was either recommended or rejected, and it was recommended.
Actually right off the title of the thing.
Yeah.
Rejected recycling roll cart repayment. It's
roll
not the
carts were
rejected, not the rejected.
He's talking about, John, the rejection of the original roll carts, not the rejection of the payments for those rejected carts.
Oh, my goodness.
Do we have the motion right over there? Lori, read it back to us so we can hear it, so everybody can hear it.
Oh, he read it, just like it's stated.
Just like it's written.
Okay.
Perhaps we could have been more artful, but I think we understand what the council wants.
Well, I'll accept this one. But, yeah, all right, thank you.
Any other questions before we start with roll? John, I'll start with you then.
I think.
Aye.
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 Okay. We're going to get our payments back in 62 months. That's awesome. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Let's see, with that concludes the end of the meeting. We will go into reports now, and I will start with Art.
Well, everything we had before us at Public Works and Finance made it onto the agenda tonight. And other than that, there were no other commission meetings that I attended.
Dog days of summer.
It is.
Dog days. But I had two meetings.
Okay, Kathy.
Planning and zoning met, and Les McDonald, our Public Works Director, will be speaking on September 14th to the Planning and Zoning, which I think is going to be great, talking about the transportation plan and the MMTP. And then they were looking at the Paradise Path Master Plan. There's a discussion on that. And they're reviewing, how the survey's coming out. So they went through the 2008, 2010, 2012, and 2014 questions that they had done. And they're trying to put together the two new questions for the survey. And then they had an ADU report, and that didn't have the worries, were not fulfilled with that. The accessory dwelling units, that was okay. And then there was a PUD amendment discussion, and then they're still talking about shared readings. And then the Moscow Pathways Commission met, and they'll be tabling at the farmers market on August 20th. They're looking for two more people to sit on that commission. Park staff reported that they're cleaning brush and painting the pathways and all that kind of stuff. And there was a large discussion about 3rd Street, kind of paralleling what's happening here. And that is all.
Okay. Very good. Jim.
I attended the Transportation Commission meeting last Thursday, and the crux of that was a presentation given by Mr. McDonald about the bicycle tourism and what's being done in conjunction with the Chamber of Commerce and to promote bicycle tourism on the Palouse, and developing a new map. And there was a lot of input from the commission about what needed to be changed and updated to make that an effective document. And also, there was brought to the table that there's going to be a bicycle fondo next summer, which is an event that will take place in downtown Moscow, and there'll be various bicycle routes that vary in distance from 15 to 100 miles to develop bicycle tourism on the Palouse. So I thought that was a good step forward. And that's all I have.
Yeah.
Part of our grant will go towards that fondo this year, part of our tourism grant. I attended the Arts Commission meeting, and that there's a lot of kind of spin over public art and talking about stuff like that. I also attended 3/4 of a 6-hour retreat for the Palouse Knowledge Corridor. During the time that I was there, they were discussing measurable outcomes and trying to decide if that was possible within the purview of what they do. They were also speaking about the development of an entrepreneurial ecosystem map, per se. Mm-hmm. So there'll be more coming from that. And that's all.
Don?
Moscow Tree Commission is the only thing that I have, and very few items here, but the tree risk assessment project status, the whole town has been done as far as trees that are at risk. So they're going to start tackling that problem. At first, they wanted to just have parts of the town done, but the young lady that is doing it, Marie, got right in the middle of it and has got the whole town taken care of. So kudos to her. And then the Heritage Tree brochure. The brochure is ready. It's being knocked around by the Tree Commission to see if it is acceptable to all of them. And then the Latah Historical Society Ice Cream Social Report went very well, and they plan on doing it again next year. And then the new subdivision tree planting and code revision. Apparently David Schott from the Parks and Rec will be bringing that code revision to the Tree Commission at the end of the month. And that is what I have.
Okay, John. I've got a couple of things. On August the 10th, and most of us up here, I think every one of us up here was at our luncheon with the university, school district, county commissioners, and talked about some of the things going on around campus and around town this summer, and in preparation for the start up of school next Monday. U of I starts, so we're right in the hunt of things. School will be back and be very, very busy. August the 12th, we had the Mayor's Golf Tournament at the University of Idaho Golf Course. It was an absolute good time. There were 17 teams, and most everybody up here was at that, and the proceeds are going to go to Alternatives to Violence on the Palouse here. We should get a report, maybe a check presentation in one of our September meetings. I don't know if it'll be the first one or the second one, but that is a big deal. And the ladies that work for Alternatives to Violence, and I'm guessing there's probably some guys, but I've never met any guys that do that, mostly the ladies, but they are very hard working for one of those things that we need to have in our community. So it was a terrific by all. They did a good job. Eric Newell did a good job from Parks and Rec and the thing set up, University of Idaho, and the food and everything. Was just a terrific day for all of us.
And then City Council came in dead last.
Well, they the mayor guys barely beat you, so we were holding down the fort on the bottom end of it. We were a threat to nobody out there, so that was a good thing other than ourselves. August the 13th at the Farmers Market, I did the proclamation. I read that on Saturday, and that was a fun event. Lots of people down there. Oh my God, it was busy. And 3 of the kids that were from AmeriCorps that worked there, they worked very hard for us down there, and I'm very appreciative of those kids as the mayor, and talked to each one of them individually and gave them a pat on the back. So that's a big deal to us. I think they're very appreciative of it. And with that, Gary, do you have anything?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to announce that the Partnership for Economic Prosperity is currently interviewing economic development director candidates. So that process will continue again tomorrow. 7 o'clock a.m. on Thursday, the 18th, August 18th, we have a joint City Council Moscow Urban Renewal Agency meeting here, 7 a.m. in these chambers. So looking forward to that, interfacing with the MURA and finding out what they're doing and having them interface with the council and being brought up to speed on the strategic plan as well. That's all I have.
Okay. With that, I would entertain a motion.
I move that we adjourn.
Oh, I'll second that.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, none. We are adjourned at 8:59, folks.